Throughout his journey, Luffy met several loyal companions who decided to sail alongside him in his quest to fulfill his dreams. With this, the best crew was created, and with it we have several interesting interactions between its members, especially with its captain. Which brings up the question, do you know what each of the Straw Hats thinks about Luffy? It's hard to know exactly what each of the Straw Hats thinks about Luffy, since it's not something they normally express. It's something that's always mentioned at moments of turning points or overcoming. It's at these moments that the Mugiwaras feel comfortable enough to state their opinions about Luffy openly. But all of them, without exception, have a clear image of Luffy as the king of the pirates. They express this opinion whenever possible, and will never accept anyone laughing at their captain's dreams and goals. Usopp has stated numerous times what he thinks about Luffy and his dream. The first time this became clear was when the Straw Hats fought the Barrack Works. At one point, Miss Mary Christmas declares that Luffy is a weakling, and therefore so are his members. And that at that moment he had already died at the hands of Mr. Zero. At this, Usopp goes ballistic. He declares that he knows Luffy and that the vein is lying. He also says that Luffy will be the man who becomes the king of the pirates. But when she hears that, she laughs. Then Usopp decides to fight with all his might to fulfill his captain's dream. And once again he declares that Luffy will be the king of the pirates. In Punk Hazard, when Caesar Clown uses a deadly gas to kill his men in front of Luffy, he runs like he's running away for fear of that lethal power. But Usopp knows exactly what his captain is doing, and explains what he thinks of Luffy. He says that no one should insult his captain because if Luffy were the type to betray his comrades, it would be much easier. Even when Usopp himself tries to run away with his tail between his legs, Luffy persists and continues without hesitation, believing until the end. A conviction that made everyone believe in him with all their might. Because trash like Caesar is the guy Luffy hates the most. Already in Dressrosa, on the verge of losing Luffy forever, as he is turned into a toy by Suck, and his existence disappears completely. Usopp has one more thought about Luffy. He declares that going to sea without his captain is no fun at all, just like continuing to be a pirate. He also expresses all his confidence in Luffy's strength, wondering who will save Dressrosa if Luffy is gone. But with his newly learned observation haki, Usopp is accurate in his shot and defeats Suck. He then declares that the glory of a sniper is in the support. This saving shot is also a shot of confidence that Luffy will resolve the situation. But since he hasn't even realized what's happened, Usopp says that Luffy just needs to ignore it and move on without any more interruptions, to his ultimate goal, Chopper. Even though Hiralik introduced Chopper to the concept of a pirate and the conviction that the pirate flag brings, Luffy was the first real pirate he saw in action. When he met Luffy, he was struck by how much he cared for his companions. He climbed a mountain 5,000 meters high, carrying 2 of them. And even on the brink of death, he prioritized making sure his companions were taken care of first. Furthermore, he was impressed by Luffy's unwavering conviction to protect the honor of a pirate flag. When Wapol tried to destroy the Hiralik flag, Luffy shouted that they don't know the true meaning behind a pirate flag, which is a symbol of faith, a promise of life. It was because he found Luffy incredible that Chopper motivated himself to fight, but he was also the first human who declared himself Chopper's real friend. And even if he has hooves, horns and a blue nose, none of that matters. The important thing is that from now on they're friends. Not only that, but Luffy was never bothered by Chopper's appearance. In fact, it was the other way around. Right from the start, Luffy thought it was cool that there was a talking humanoid reindeer, and immediately invited Chopper to join the gang. It was such a noble thing to do that it made Chopper forget his traumas and want to become a real monster, if that's what it takes to make Luffy king of the pirates. What's more, as Chopper still has a childish mentality, Luffy is one of his pranking partners alongside Usopp. Nami. At first we could say that Nami thinks Luffy is irresponsible, inconsequential, and an airhead. That's why she has to discipline him with lots and lots of talking and positive education. Even so, Luffy is the person she trusts the most. He was the first pirate who wasn't like the others, but showed a different and fun way of being a pirate, where you can sail the seas, have adventures and plunder, without necessarily having to hurt other people. He is also your greatest emotional support in times of despair, since he's the first name you think of to solve any situation. In addition to having full confidence that Luffy will defeat any enemy in front of him, until he finally becomes king of the pirates. An example of this was in Skypiea, when Luffy wanted to defeat Enel by any means possible. Nami entrusted her life to her captain to take him to the ultimate arc. Cap 995. Her confidence that Luffy will become king of the pirates is such that, on the verge of dying with a headbutt from the UTI, she couldn't say otherwise, even if it was just a lie to survive. When UTI told her to repeat that Luffy will never become king of the pirates, crying, she declared with all her faith that Luffy will definitely become king of the pirates. Cap 1043. Such was her conviction that when Kaido declared that Luffy was dead, Nami came face to face with the Yonko to tell him that he was a lying snake. She declares that Luffy will never lose, and that he will never die. She only didn't die here because the mark blocked the Kaido's burrow breath, but she risked her life to defy a Yonko and declare what she thinks about her captain. Sanji. Sanji sympathized with Luffy from the moment he discovered that Luffy had a dream as unreal as his own. But he also thinks Luffy is a glutton without limits, to the point of putting a mousetrap and a lock on the fridge, all to stop Luffy from eating all the food. And like Nami, he applies a lot of positive manners to Luffy when he makes fun of him at inopportune moments. Like all Mugiwaras, he believes with all his might that Luffy will become king of the pirates. He demonstrates this when he stands before Kuma to give his life in exchange for Luffy's, even though he is stopped by Zoro. He was so confident that Luffy was going to become king of the pirates that he left the gang to prevent everyone from being killed by one of the Yonko. He decided to sacrifice himself and give up his dream so that Luffy could fulfill his. Even though Sanji himself could no longer be part of that dream, he also fully trusts Luffy's statements. If he says he's going to do something, he definitely will. Like when Luffy promised not to move or eat anything until Sanji came back, and when he came back Luffy was still there, and if he never came back, Luffy would really starve to death. But I also admire how narcissistic Luffy is when he decides that something is going to be done his way. Like when he decided to take on one of the Yonko, break up Sanji's wedding, save his family and run away with the copy of the poneglyphs and Sanji back. But he also has full confidence in his captain's strength. When he heard that Luffy was facing the Katakuri, who has a bounty of 1 by and has never been defeated, Sanji simply declared that, if that was the case, then today would be his first defeat. 884. This conviction that Luffy would win made Sanji single-handedly responsible for rescuing Luffy amidst an army of enemies waiting for him at the only escape point. He was the one who got Luffy to Sunny, even with the help of Germa. But in a way, this was his way of repaying all his captain's efforts in risking his life for him, his family and his dream. In addition, faced with 2 Yonko commanders and the strongest creature in the world, Sanji, alongside Zoro, declared that if they won at the end of this war, Luffy would be one step closer to becoming king of the pirates. Brook. As with Chopper, Brook acquired deep admiration and respect for Luffy when he was treated like a normal person, even though he was a talking skeleton. In fact, Luffy was happier to meet this talking skeleton than he would have been to meet anyone else. Not only that, but right away he invited him to join his crew. And when he found out about Brook's problem, he fought with all his might to help him recover his shadow. From that day on, Brook offered his life and services to Luffy, and swore to follow his every command. 489. His devotion to Luffy is such that he left a career as a soul music king with millions of followers around the world to continue sailing with the Straw Hats. But not before declaring to the whole world that the Luffy of the Straw Hat is alive, and that he will definitely become the king of pirates. 600. Even in the face of one of the Yonko, Brook didn't give up and fought for his captain. He declares that Luffy always does what he believes is right. And even if, at the end of all his sacrifice for Sanji, he never wanted to rejoin the gang, they had to make the whole trip worthwhile. So that Sanji himself doesn't feel guilty if something happens to one of them. That's why, even in the face of one of the Yonko, Brook declares that he will take the road poneglyph and help his captain, even at the cost of his life. Franky. The first feeling that Franky developed towards Luffy was anger. Anger that he had destroyed his base and beaten up his friends. This led to the two of them subsequently going at it until they were separated by the Gallela. But what changed Franky's mind about him and the whole gang was witnessing everyone's courage and sacrifice in rescuing Robin from a world government base. After seeing Luffy defy the whole world for his friend, Franky was inspired to help the gang and risk his life to rescue Robin. After all, he was also fighting for his own life. Franky is another of the Mugiwaras who fully trusts that Luffy will become king of the pirates. He's so sure of this that, faced with a Yonko like Big Mom, he refused to run away and has already prepared his strongest attack. In his mind, Why would they have to run away from a mere Yonko, since the position their captain is aiming for is superior? He wants to make Luffy king of the pirates. In the most recent chapters, Franky was also proud of how dangerous and well-known his captain is after becoming a Yonko. That even the Gorosei themselves, the highest echelon in the world, are after his captain's head. Robin is deeply grateful to Luffy, all because he allowed her to continue living and have a place to call home. Even if, at first, he had no intention of making her his companion. After learning that she had nowhere else to go, Luffy let her join the gang. This deep gratitude made her sacrifice herself for the gang by turning herself into the world government. But little did she know that, when it comes to Luffy, the whole world can become your enemy if it's to protect one of your friends. After seeing the gang's sacrifice in invading a navy base to save her and free her from the bonds of her past, Robin developed a deep admiration and respect for Luffy and his companion. So from then on, she wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice her life in order to make Luffy's dream come true. Her confidence in the strength of the gang and their captain is such that when she was warned that the greatest forces in the world, especially the Yonko, were after her, her response was simple and clear: I have reliable companions to protect me. Her direct relationship with Luffy is pretty cool. Since she's used to living in the madness that is the gang, she doesn't even mind the mess Luffy makes anymore. In fact, she thinks it's funny and just laughs. Zoro acquired a deep respect for Luffy from the moment they both told each other their unrealistic dreams, and didn't doubt their abilities to achieve this goal. After all, the least that is expected of the swordsman in the band of the future king of pirates is that he be the strongest swordsman in the world. This was so ingrained in Zoro's mind that when he lost to Mihawk, his only thought was, what will Luffy think of this? It was only after his defeat that he vowed never to lose again until he defeated Mihawk and became the strongest swordsman in the world. Zoro is one of the Mugiwaras most devoted to Luffy and his decisions. As much as he thinks Luffy is an idiot, he never questions his orders, but is amazed by many of them and by his captain's own actions. Even though at the beginning of his journey, he declared that he would kill Luffy if he got in the way of his dream. His respect for Luffy grew so much that at one point, Zoro decided that he could only become the greatest swordsman in the world if he made Luffy king of the pirates. After that, he was always willing to throw his life and dreams away if it was necessary for Luffy to live on and fulfill his dream. Just as happened in Thriller Bark, when Zoro saw that he couldn't beat Shichibukai Kuma, and decided to trade his life for the life of his captain. Not only that, but he threw his pride away and bowed his head for his greatest rival to train him to become stronger. But not for his own sake, but to be strong enough to make Luffy king of the pirates. His loyalty to Luffy is such that he has already stated that he only became a pirate because of Luffy, solely and exclusively, so there would be no point in continuing to be a pirate if he wasn't sailing with Luffy. But he also acts as Luffy's moral support in various adverse situations. He was the one who gave Luffy the strength to endure having to fight one of his companions. But he was also the reason, when Luffy was about to bring USOPP back without him having apologized for what he had done, preaching deep respect for the captain and his decisions, however idiotic they may be. But he also always warns Luffy to stay focused, because any mistake by the captain could cost him his journey and the lives of all the members of the gang. In addition, Zoro has extreme admiration for his captain and his strength. He knows that Luffy can take care of and beat the strongest enemies they face. So all he has to do is take care of his enemy and the rest will be done. He was also happy to see how strong his captain had become after the time skip, when he took down 50,000 fish men with his king's haki. JINBE. Initially, JINBE had a certain antipathy towards Luffy. He thought he was just some inconsequential pirate. So he refused Ace's request to protect his brother, declaring that he had no relationship or reason to protect Luffy. But all that changed the moment the two met for the first time. Luffy trusted JINBE straight away, and his actions after that, until they finally escaped from Impel Down, made JINBE admire Luffy to the point of risking his life to save him. The deep respect JINBE acquired for Luffy for all his actions and sacrifices to save his brother until the very end. It meant that JINBE had to protect Luffy at all costs, as if he were the legacy that Ace had left behind. Not only that, but because of Old Whitebeard's final orders to protect Luffy until the end. JINBE also served as Luffy's moral and emotional support in a moment of despair when he had just lost his brother and no longer saw any meaning in life. It was thanks to JINBE that he remembered what he hadn't lost yet, his gang, his journey, and that he had to go back to them. On the island of the Newts, he decided that Luffy had to become the island's hero, all because he believed in the good person that Luffy is. Then he discovered that his blood is the same as Luffy's. So he didn't hesitate to donate his blood to save him once again, even if it means breaking one of the Triton laws that forbids donating blood to humans. Like the other Mugiwaras, he has complete faith that Luffy will become king of the pirates, to the point where he also challenges the Big Mom face to face and declares that he's not afraid of a mere Yonko when his captain becomes king of the pirates. Generally, he laughs at Luffy's decisions and actions, wondering how he chose such an idiot captain, but only to laugh at Luffy's foolishness afterwards.